Welcome to the deep dive.
Great to be here.
Today we're really diving into some source material a listener sent over. It's about a pretty extraordinary event on a British Airways flight.
Yeah, I read the article. We're talking about a really wild incident involving a crew member way up high over the Atlantic.
Exactly. So imagine you're on a long-haul flight, maybe trying to get some sleep over the ocean.
And then something completely unexpected happens with the crew themselves.
Yeah, the core of the story, based on this article, is pretty stunning. A crew member was apparently found naked and, well, dancing mid-flight.
Which then led to an arrest and a whole investigation once they landed.
Right. So our mission today is to unpack the details from this source. We want to understand, the sequence of events, how they handled it up there.
And what the sort of wider implications might be, as highlighted in the article.
Okay, let's unpack this then. So, setting the stage. The article tells us this was a British Airways flight.
Correct. An A380 service flying from San Francisco, SFO, to London Heathrow, LHR.
An A380-800. That's the huge double-decker plane, right?
That's the one. Massive aircraft. And it was a busy flight, too. The source mentions around 470 passengers and crew.
Wow. And it's a long trip. Over 10 hours across the Atlantic.
10 and a half hours, yeah. And the article says this all kicked off during meal service.
Oh, so right when things are pretty busy for the crew.
Exactly. Cruising at about 37,000 feet.
And the initial trigger. What does the source say first went wrong?
Well, it seems a steward just disappeared. He was supposed to be serving food and drinks, part of the meal service, and he just wasn't there. His colleagues noticed he hadn't reported for his duties.
Right, so they'd obviously have to look for him, especially on a plane that big.
Yeah, the flight attendants started searching, the different sections of this double-decker.
And the discovery.
Mm-hmm.
This is the part that's just, well, hard to believe. Where did they find him?
According to the article, he was found in one of the restrooms in the Club World cabin, so business class.
Okay. And his condition?
Completely nude. And dancing. That's what the source states.
Dancing. Naked. In a business class lavatory. At 37,000 feet.
Yeah. The article mentions the crew supervisor who found him was, well, understandably shocked.
I think shocked might be putting it mildly. So, okay, they're faced with this absolutely bizarre situation, midair, miles from anywhere. What did the crew do immediately? What does the article say?
Well, the first thing, clearly, was to manage the immediate situation. The report details that they acted quickly to get him clothed.
And they had to improvise, didn't they? I think the article mentioned spare pajamas.
That's right, yeah. Spare pajamas meant for first-class passengers.
Wow. So they get him dressed in first-class PJs.
Yeah.
Then, what, they've still got hours of flying left.
They had to secure him. The article says they escorted him to the premium cabin section, so presumably First or Club World,
Okay.
and secured him in one of the luxury seats there for the rest of the flight.
Secured him, meaning like watched over him or actually restrained. The article isn't totally clear, maybe.
The source uses the word secured. It implies ensuring he stayed put and wasn't causing further disruption, but doesn't detail the exact method. Likely closely monitored.
Right, and I can only imagine the impact on the rest of the crew.
Yeah.
They're now short-staffed.
Absolutely. And dealing with, well, this significant distraction, the source highlights the remaining flight attendants had to work the entire rest of the journey without their scheduled breaks.
That's tough on such a long flight.
Yeah.
They had to basically redistribute all his tasks among themselves.
Yes, exactly. Redistribute responsibilities, keep the service running for hundreds of passengers, all while managing this unprecedented situation behind the scenes. Speaks volumes about their professionalism, really.
It really does. So while all this is happening up in the air, were people on the ground aware?
Oh, yes. The article states British Airways management was contacted during the flight. They, in turn, alerted the police.
Ah, okay. So the authorities knew what was coming.
Precisely. So when the A380 landed at Heathrow, around 11 a.m. on that Sunday morning,
Law enforcement was waiting.
right there to meet the aircraft. The article says police arrested the flight attendant immediately after they landed.
Was there a medical aspect, too?
Yes, the source mentions medical personnel were involved. He apparently needed a wheelchair to get off the plane and received medical attention as part of that emergency response protocol on arrival.
Okay, so shifting gears a bit. The cause. What does the source material suggest might have been behind this?
Well, there's strong suspicion mentioned coming from his colleagues.
Right.
Crew members quoted in the piece suspect he might have consumed drugs either before the flight or perhaps during it.
The article quotes an anonymous colleague, doesn't it? Describing it as, well, extraordinary.
Yes, saying he appeared clearly under the influence, way up there over the Atlantic.
And this colleague apparently called the behavior dangerous and career-ending.
Exactly, highlighting just how serious and unprecedented it was, and, raising concerns about safety implications if a crew member is incapacitated.
Yeah, that's a huge safety concern on any flight. So what about the official response? British Airways and the police.
BA acknowledged the incident, naturally, and confirmed they were cooperating fully with the police investigation.
And the article stresses this wasn't just being handled internally by BA.
No, crucially, it was immediately referred to the police as a criminal investigation, not just a disciplinary matter.
Which makes sense given the circumstances.
Yeah.
Did BA take any internal action described in the source?
Yes, the report states the steward was suspended from duty immediately, pending the outcome of all the investigations.
And the article sort of puts this in a wider context.
It does. It notes that this kind of incident, while extreme, touches on ongoing challenges airlines face with crew conduct and preventing substance abuse in the aviation industry.
Right. It brings those issues right to the forefront in a very public way.
Definitely. And the current status, according to the source, BA's internal investigation continues and the suspended employee is awaiting the legal proceedings.
So it's still very much an active situation.
Seems so. It's a complex picture. You've got the individual's actions, the crew's response under pressure, airline procedures, law enforcement, all intersecting.
Okay, so let's quickly recap the key points from this deep dive into the source material. We started with this truly shocking discovery. A crew member, naked, dancing, in a business class restroom at 37,000 feet.
Then the crew's incredibly quick reaction, clothing him in first-class PJs, securing him in a luxury seat, managing the rest of the flight short-handed without breaks.
Followed by the immediate arrest upon landing at Heathrow, and this strong suspicion noted in the article that substance use was involved.
Yeah, and what really makes this story from the source material stand out are those specific, almost surreal details. The dancing, the pajamas, being secured in a premium seat for hours.
And the fact it became a criminal matter right away.
Exactly. It just underscores how unpredictable things can be, even in what we think of as a very controlled environment, like an airplane cabin.
So, stepping back, what does this all mean? It raises some big questions, doesn't it? About crew well-being, maybe support systems.
Definitely. And about safety protocols for when the crew themselves are the issue, and just how airlines handle these incredibly rare but potentially serious situations.
The article specifically mentioned this incident highlights challenges airlines face regarding crew conduct and substance abuse prevention. So here's maybe a final thought for you, our listener, to chew on. Given how public this was, and the really bizarre specific details, the nudity, the dancing on a major transatlantic flight, what does this particular event tell us about the visibility or perhaps the nature of the challenge airlines face with crew conduct? Does something this extreme suggest wider hidden issues? Or is it more likely just a very, very rare, isolated outlier that simply caught the public eye because it was so strange?
That's a really interesting question. How representative is such an extreme case? Lots to think about there regarding human factors and safety culture in aviation.
Indeed. Well, thanks for joining us for this deep dive.